having heaven now, bringing heaven home. You see, we've often thought of heaven as this far off place in the afterlife. However, the teachings of metaphysics teach us something different. The key teaching of metaphysics is the law of inner cause and outer effect, also known as the law of correspondence. Metaphysics teaches us that what is happening in our inner consciousness, our consciousness being our thoughts based on our education, or generally our miseducation, based on our life experiences, and sadly, our trauma. All these energies of our thoughts, our ideas, our reactions to the world, and the way we see the world is reflected in our outer world. In other words, the world we see is a reflection of our thoughts, and our thoughts are a function of what we've been mistaught. So, when we understand that, we understand that the world outside of us corresponds to what's going on within us. Therefore, if we have hell within us, hell in the form of self rejection, hell in the form of an expectation of punishment because we have conscious hell, chaos, because we have then the world outside of us shows us that because our souls came here to heal it. The good news here is that if we cultivate an inner consciousness, we can experience heaven in our worlds as we meditate and align with God and feel God's love and feel ourselves as the vessels for God's love, as the channels for God's love, as the repositories for God's love, and as we feel ourselves as God's love made manifest, and as we vibrate with that love, we radiate that out into our worlds. And that loving radiation then creates a loving experience in our worlds. In other words, the heaven within creates heaven on earth. Because as we align with God, fill ourselves with the God energy of light and love, as we channel God's light and love to us and through us, God, being loved, is happiness, according to A Course in Miracles, Lesson 104. So we can create our heaven on earth right now by cultivating our inner consciousness. And the other thing I want to say about this, and I'm going to say it several times throughout this sermon because it's so important for us to understand this. You and you alone are responsible and powerful enough to create your heaven on earth. You and you alone are responsible and powerful enough to create and bring heaven home right now. It's not dependent on anything outside of you. It's not dependent on any political party outside of you. It's not on any world order that seems to be getting upset outside of you. It's not dependent on your relatives. It's not dependent on your family or your neighbors or your boss or your job or your zip code or your past. The only thing that can help you create your heaven on earth is your consciousness within you. That is the only thing that can create your heaven on earth. So how do we do this? That sounds so simple. That sounds so easy. But how? Well, it actually is quite simple and easy. So if you remember nothing else from this talk, the way to create your heaven on earth, the way to bring heaven home, The way to have heaven now is to simply be forgiving. I'm going to repeat that. The way to experience your heaven on earth, the way to bring heaven home right now, the way to cultivate an inner consciousness of heaven that gets outpictured in your world as heaven on earth is to be forgiving. So let's unpack that a little bit. What does it mean to be forgiving? Well, first of all, why is forgiveness a key to this? Well, A Course in Miracles lesson 121 says forgiveness is the key to happiness. A Course in Miracles lesson 121 says, here is the answer to your search for peace. Here is the meaning in a world that seems to make no sense. Here is the way to feel safe in apparent dangers that appear to threaten you at every turn and bring uncertainty to all your hopes of ever finding quietness and peace. Here are all questions answered, and here is the end to all uncertainty ensured at last. That is forgiveness. Forgiveness brings you all of that. And A Course in Miracles lesson 122 says, forgiveness offers everything I want. It says, what could you want? Forgiveness cannot give. Do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness? A quiet mind, certainty of purpose, a sense of worth, a sense of beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety, the warmth of protection always? Do you want a quietness that can never be disturbed, a gentleness that can never be hurt, and a deep and abiding comfort, and a rest so perfect it cannot be upset? Forgiveness offers that. Well, is this not heaven? All of those things mentioned, a deep and abiding peace, a sense of safety, comfort, a sense of purpose, a sense of protection, a sense of alignment with something bigger than yourself, a sense of warmth, a sense of love. Isn't that heaven? Yes, it is. There's a little fine print, there's a little catch. In order to have the heaven that forgiveness offers, we must understand forgiveness as it really is. A Course in Miracles lesson 134 says, let me understand forgiveness as it really is. And it explains to us that the meaning of forgived has been distorted to be perceived as something that entails an unfair sacrifice of righteous wrath, a gift unjustified and undeserved, a complete denial of the truth. So we've twisted forgiveness into something that it's not. We've twisted forgiveness into a transaction. This is how we have misused forgiveness. Somebody does us, quote, wrong. Somebody disrespects us. Someone treats us unlovingly. Someone does not meet our expectations because we believe they are responsible for making us happy. And we get mad. We are the victim. We are the aggrieved. We are the besieged. And so what happens then? I forgive you. We rise up haughtily in righteous indignation. And in that righteous indignation, we seem to gather up the shreds of our shredded confidence, the parts of us that felt diminished by this interaction. And we then get a false sense of superiority because in our righteous indignation, I forgive you. And look at me, I'm a martyr. Despite all that you put me through, I forgive you. There's a wrath in that. And there's the implication that you're still a, I'm not going to mention the words that we think you are, but you are still that. And I'm still all of this. But I forgive you because with my wrath and my righteous indignation, I still prove that I'm better than you. And I pick up the pieces of that which fell apart when you hurt me. So, have you noticed that as we went through that, wrath, righteous indignation, anger, resentment, and the feeling of victimhood just multiplied upon itself? It didn't solve anything, it didn't heal anything. That's a misuse of forgiveness. That's a distortion of forgiveness. That's the ego's idea of forgiveness. But God's idea of forgiveness is much different. In God's idea of forgiveness, as it really is, forgiveness is not a transaction. Forgiveness is not this thing where you give someone a free pass and you feel better falsely. Forgiveness is not this thing where if you forgive them, then forgiveness is not this thing where you forgive them for their transgressions, but really they're still the transgressor, and you are still the victim. It is not a transaction. What if forgiveness were a state of being where you find the peace that was rocked when someone committed a quote offense? What if forgiveness is a state of wholeness that you recover when you look at that situation of the offense differently? What if forgiveness is a remembrance that no matter what the offense was, it was where you too, or you and an organization, or you and a company, or you and a bank, or you and a neighbor, or you and a friend, forgot that you were both holy and divine, innocent and perfect, loved and lovable, and you played roles of victim and victimizer as an error in perception and as a false twisting of who you really were. And what if forgiveness was remembering who you really are? That despite the offense, it didn't really affect you because you're the holy, beloved child of God. And they, despite being the offender, they too are the holy, beloved child of God. So you see yourself differently and you see them differently. What if forgiveness was returning to a state of truth where the illusion that you were a victim and they were a victimizer is healed by the love of God? Because that whole transaction, that whole victim victimizer thing was designed by your souls to show you where you felt unloved in order that you might reintroduce, remember, and recognize the love of God that was always there waiting to heal that wound. What if that is what forgiveness is? A recognition of the truth of God's presence and God's love, where any situation that you think requires forgiveness is a place where you forgot God's presence and God's love. Then forgiveness and being forgiving builds a bridge that lets heaven come to you. Because heaven, what you experienced was hell. But through being forgiving, you build a bridge, you create the space, you create an invitation for heaven within you where hell had existed. So it's not about forgiving as a verb, it's about being forgiving, being in the state of forgiveness, not doing forgiveness as a verb that you do to somebody else who doesn't deserve it, but being in a state of forgiveness because you are the beloved of God and you deserve the love you thought wasn't there. So, what is this bridge of forgiveness that brings heaven home to you? It's an inner state that you can practice, you can cultivate it, you can maintain it, but it involves being willing to seeing things differently than your egoic mind. You see, our egoic minds have been filled with all kinds of information and misinformation and miseducation. We've been habitually used to seeing ourselves as victim and the world or others as our victimizers. This is our habit. This is our default. This is our reflex. So when we are hurt, we see insult in a compliment. For example, uh, I observed a situation where someone was greeting another that they hadn't seen for a while. Oh, so good to see you. And the person being greeted was feeling guilty about not showing up for a while. And they thought the person was calling them out and diminishing them for being absent. They thought they were being judged for being absent. So they took love as an insult because they saw it through the lens of their own guilt. And they twisted a compliment into an insult. I know no one here has ever done that. When we're hurt, we see rejection in an embrace. Someone wants to embrace us, someone offers us a compliment. What do? We deflect it. Why do we deflect it? Because part of us says, if they only knew the real me, they wouldn't be embracing me. They would be rejecting me. Part of us has been wounded by prior rejection, might have started in childhood. When we felt rejected by our parents, when they didn't have the resources to give us what we needed because of their own trauma, we might perceive everything as rejection. So we build walls between us and love and wonder why love doesn't seem to be available, when in fact it's our own judgments of ourselves and the unconscious belief that if you only knew me, you would reject me. So I'm going to reject you first before I get hurt anymore. These feelings of self-condemnation and not enoughness create hell. Just like if we have had a chaotic childhood, or if we have only seen chaos in our lives, we may have peace for a moment, but we may unconsciously sabotage that peace because we're not used to it. We're not comfortable with it. We're only comfortable in chaos. I observed a friend who picked a fight in a relationship because they had never had a healthy relationship modeled to them. Their idea of a relationship was Pat Benatar's idea of a relationship. Remember Pat Benatar? Love is a battlefield. Well, they believed that love had to be a battlefield, and they couldn't get accustomed to love being harmonious, love being complementary, love being peaceful, love being joyful. They thought love had to be a battle, and if it wasn't a battle, it wasn't love. They saw things through the lens of their miseducation, of their prior experiences, and they created hell. None of you have ever done this, but so I'm talking about an amorphous they. I'm not talking about you, and I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about they, okay? So this is okay. Wow, we see how we can create hell. How do we create heaven? We must be willing to see this and every situation differently. Anytime we have a challenge, anytime we are knocked off our stride, anytime we are taken out of our peace, let us recognize, is this a pattern? Has this happened before? What does this remind us of? And then let us ask, what is the story I have told myself behind this? And this must be a story because this does not feel good. This must be a story. It must be false because in truth, truth would set me free. Truth would cause me to feel happiness. Truth would give me strength, confidence, power, and peace. This must not be truth because it is not offering me strength, confidence, power, or peace. What is the truth that can set me free? What is the truth that can heal me? Okay? So let's go through this with a couple of the examples that we already worked with. Let's work with the first one, long time no see. Now, that's a challenge because we have seen it through the lens of our own guilt. We feel that we are being singled out, called out for not being there because we feel guilty for not being there. It's a pattern. We have a pattern of guilt, and this brings it up. And that's okay, because that's why we came to earth, to heal these unproductive patterns so we can adopt productive patterns that produce the joy that we desire and deserve. So this is a pattern. The story we're telling ourselves is we are not enough. What is the truth? The truth is that we are enough. We are the holy, beloved children of God. The truth is that God loves us. The truth is that God embraces us. The truth is that this love and embrace is complete and unconditional. And when we fill our minds with this truth, when we fill our energies with this truth, when we fill our hearts with this truth is love. And when we fill ourselves with this love, we see ourselves as love. When we see ourselves as love, we see that no one would judge or reject us, for we are love. And as we love and accept ourselves, the world must respond. So, long time no see turns into what it was intended to be. I love you. And as Uma said, we can love ourselves enough to love others enough that they can love us and we can be in love. If they only knew me. Well, the me that you were afraid they were getting to know is not you at all. That, oh, they couldn't embrace me because, and even if they are embracing me, it's not true, it's not real. They're really going to reject me if they only knew me. That story is not true because the you they are afraid, the you that you are afraid of allowing them to see is not you at all. You are not the hurt. I'm talking to myself. You are not the hurt, scorned, rejected love child who would find rejection at every turn. You are not the person others judged as not enough. You're never going to be nothing. You're not nothing now, and you can't be nothing. You are not that person. You are not the person who made this mistake and that mistake and this mistake and that mistake and therefore don't deserve your good. You are the holy, beloved child of God. That is all you are. That is all you have ever been. You put on a costume, you made some mistakes, but that doesn't matter to God. God doesn't see that. God only sees what God created, and God created you like itself as love. So that whole thing was the story. You allow the truth to settle in you as you sit in the truth. If you've only known chaos and conflict, you sit in the truth and you feel the peace of God. And you work with the idea, I could see peace instead of this. You could see yourself differently. You could see God differently. You could see your world differently. You could see God as love and only love, not as judgment. And so those judgments that you've held against yourself, you can let go. You can see the world as your playground that embraces you, as a reflection of your consciousness of love, as you cultivate that consciousness of love, and the world becomes a wonderful place, not a funhouse filled with pain and suffering. You can see yourself as loving, lovable, and lovable. You can see yourself as the beloved of God. And when you're willing to see yourself differently, the world sees you differently. You can see yourself as one for whom things always work out instead of one for whom things never work out. You can see yourself as one worthy of every benefit and blessing of God's grace. And when you see yourself this way, and then when you feel yourself this way, that is the healing. The healing is a feeling. The healing is a new energy pattern. And this new state, this new energy is the state of being forgiving. This being forgiving is the state that lets heaven in, for you have resolved your error in thinking. You have released the story and the energetic pattern behind it. You have, as they said in Romans 12:12, you have been transformed by your thinking. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. You have a new mind, the mind of God. You have new eyes, the eyes through which God sees. You have a new heart, the heart of love of God, for you have allowed yourself to merge with God by sitting in meditation, by sitting in prayer, by releasing that which no longer serves you. You have sit. In essence, you have let the power of God, the energy of God, and the vision of God move in where your ego previously had the power, the vision, and the energy. And God, being love, is happiness. God, being love, is forgiveness. And once we build that bridge, we can have heaven now. Now, once again, building this bridge doesn't require any changes in your outer world. Until today, we've tried to change this about that person, change that about this person, change this about the outer world. Yeah, that's all well and good, but it all begins within. Like the song, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. It begins within you. Then whatever you are guided to do in the outer world, yes, do that. But let it begin with you first, because we can't control our outer world. We can control our inner world. And when we focus on God and let God heal us and let God fill us and let the world embrace us as we embrace ourselves, we are in the state of forgiveness that allows heaven here on earth. Be forgiving of God. Experience your own God, the God of love, the God of peace, the God of grace, the God of embrace, the God of upliftment, the God of healing, the God of fullness, the God of fun, the God of happiness, the God of fulfillment. Experience that energy of God, not your granny's God of sin. Be forgiving of your world. A lesson in the Course in Miracles says, for I have loosed the world from what I thought it was when I was wounded, and I create a new heaven and a new earth within me. This new heaven and a new earth within me that I cultivate is my safe space of peace, is my safe space of love, is my safe space of light, is my safe space of good. And the more I cultivate this energy, the more this energy must show up in my outer world, for heaven within me is heaven outside of me. And be forgiving of yourself. I, I am still as God created me, despite any mistakes, despite any experiences. There is a part of me which is the true me, not shamed, not molded, not diminished by my experiences, my past, or these mistakes, but buffed up, learned, healed, and growing through them. So I am still as God created me. I am still light. I am still love. And how can we do all of this? It's simple. Screen our thoughts. When my mother was sick, she was throwing blood clots all over the place, and they were going to kill her. So they put a screen, I think it was in her aorta, to screen these blood clots so they wouldn't travel to the heart, lungs, and brain and kill her. Well, we can screen our thoughts so they don't travel into our energy and create hell for us. And the screen is my thought. My mind holds only what I think with God. So any thought that we have, we can say, is this a God thought or is this an ego thought? A God thought is expansive. An ego thought is restrictive. A God thought is loving. An ego thought is critical. A God thought is joyful. An ego thought is fear-based. A God thought is powerful. An ego thought is disempowering. A God thought is fun. An ego thought is tedious. So we screen our thoughts. Is this a thought I think with God, or this is something my ego twisted? And when we screen our thoughts in this way, we have the power to choose to embrace and to magnify only the thoughts of heaven, only the thoughts of love, only the thoughts of expansiveness, only the thoughts of peace, only the thoughts of joy, only the thoughts of good. My mind holds only what I think with God. God is good, and so am I. My mind holds only the thoughts I think with God. God is giving, and there is nothing to forgive, for these mistakes do not define me or limit me. These mistakes have come to teach me. And they have taught me that I am whole just as I am. They have taught me that I am complete just as I am. They've taught me that I am loving just as I am. So my mind holds only what I think with God, and that which I think with God is magnified. God's will for me is perfect happiness. So when I think of God's will for me as happiness, I allow that happiness in, and that inner happiness, that inner heaven must show up in my outer world. And that is how we bring heaven home. Heaven was never outside of us in the world circumstances. Heaven was never someplace far off in the afterlife. Heaven has been waiting for us to open to it. Heaven has been waiting for us to open it like a can of soup, because heaven has been living within us all along. We have just had to avail ourselves to the teachings, to the healings, to the energies, and to the communities that would cause us to recognize, remember, and to realign with heaven. You've got it already, like a can of soup that is within you, waiting to be opened. Heaven is within you. You can bring it home right now. You can have heaven right now by allowing your mind to hold only the thoughts that you have with God. You can bring heaven home right now by sitting with God, listening to God, and believing God instead of believing what someone told you 30 years ago. You can have heaven right now by remembering who you really are and knowing that who you really are is whole and loved and lovable and powerful and joyful and deserving and enough just as you are. You can have heaven right now by being forgiving, being in that state of innocence, being in that state of worthiness, being in that state of deservingness, being in that state of guiltlessness as the guiltless Son, S-U-N, of God in a sinless world. Heaven is a decision you have already made. Heaven is a place you have already visited. Let's visit it more through our daily spiritual practice. Let's expand our experience of it until it is impossible for us to experience anything but heaven. Let's bring heaven home. Let's have heaven now. Thank you.